Emma, do you know what they say? They say when a Ferris wheel reaches the very top, that's when love is at its strongest. If two people in love complete a full circle, they'll be together forever. But Emma, we were so close, just a little bit more. Please, don't leave me all alone. Without you, I really can't. Hello, Miss Jones. I have terminal cancer, but I should make it to the Harvest Moon Festival. I have a little money, and I'm an orphan, no parents. Do I meet your requirements? The woman across the table sized me up. After examining the oncologist's report I handed her, she nodded, satisfied. This was Emma, the woman I'd loved for years, but right now, she had no idea who I was. In the 8 months I'd been gone, I'd had extensive facial reconstruction. I'd heard recently that she was looking for someone to marry, with 3 strange conditions. First, the person had to be an orphan. Second, they only needed to live until the Harvest Moon Festival. And third, having money was a plus. All of these conditions were based on the man she thought was dead, me. She was looking for my replacement, except for the terminal illness part, of course. But now, I fit that description too. She set down the report, looking at me with a hint of confusion. You seem like a good catch. Are you really okay with these ridiculous terms? I just held up my new driver's license and said calmly, let's go. We went to City Hall and got the license that same day, and I brought her back to my new apartment. She did a quick tour of the place, then turned to me and seriously laid down some ground rules. From now on, we sleep in separate rooms. The moment the festival is over, we get a divorce. All assets remain separate, and we don't interfere in each other's lives. Also, she paused for a moment, then added coolly, know your place. You don't mind being treated like a pet, do you? I just shook my head. I don't mind. Once that was settled, she gave a little wave and headed out the door. I walked over to the bathroom mirror, studying the stranger staring back at me. The Emma I knew was always a bit materialistic and a sucker for a handsome face, but she seemed different now. Here I was, arguably better looking than before, and she was demanding separate rooms and wanted none of my money. A few months back, the flight I was scheduled to be on went down. By some miracle, I never boarded the plane, but my luck ran out when I got into a horrific car accident on the way to the airport that completely destroyed my face. Emma thought I died in that crash. By the time the reconstructive surgery was done and I was ready to find her, I was diagnosed with cancer. I couldn't bear the thought of putting her through the pain of finding me again only to lose me a second time. My initial plan was to just disappear and wait for the end alone, but then I heard about her search for a substitute. Since she clearly hadn't moved on, I decided to come back under a new identity to be with her one last time. Besides, I missed her like crazy. That evening, I was finishing up dinner when I heard a key in the lock. The door swung open, and a small dog immediately caught my scent, beelining for me and whining as he pawed at my leg. It was Buddy, the dog I'd raised since he was a pup. Emma rushed over and scooped him into her arms, looking apologetic. I'm so sorry. My buddy is usually terrified of strangers. I have no idea what's gotten into him. She patted his head gently. Buddy, why are you being so wild today? He squirmed in her arms, still whimpering in my direction. I reached out for him. His name is Buddy? I'm Ethan. As Buddy settled down, nuzzling into my arms, Emma fell silent. Her gaze drifted to the dinner table, and a distant look came over her eyes. Let's eat, I said, breaking the silence. I'll get Buddy settled. You can go ahead and start. Ethan, did you make this all yourself? She asked, her gaze lowered and her voice a little thick. I nodded. It tastes a lot like the way he used to cook, she murmured, her fork hovering over her plate. She cleared her throat. Who is he? I kept my composure. I just followed a recipe I found online. Who is this he you mentioned? She replied coolly. It's nothing. It's delicious. Not feeling well, I went straight to my room after we finished eating. I woke up around 2 in the morning to a faint glow from the balcony. I walked out to find Emma sitting there alone, drinking. Why are you still up? You shouldn't stay up so late, I said, sitting down beside her. She looked at me with glazed over eyes, and a second later she collapsed into my arms, sobbing incoherently. Ethan, you liar. My whole body went rigid. Ethan was my name now, but it was also my name before. I glanced at the wine bottle, now half empty, and let out a quiet sigh of relief. She was normally a lightweight, so she had to be completely drunk. If I hadn't been here, who knows what trouble she might have found tonight. I lifted her into my arms and carried her toward her bedroom, muttering, "Can't hold your liquor, can you?" As I set her down on the bed, her arms tightened around my neck. She buried her face in my shoulder, greedily breathing in my scent and whimpering. "Ethan, I miss you so much. You promised you'd propose to me at the festival." A wave of sorrow washed over me. I finally understood. She just needed someone, anyone, to get her through this year's festival, to fulfill the promise we had made. After that, she wanted someone who would just disappear, making a terminally ill patient the perfect candidate to avoid any future complications. She could be so clever and so foolish at the same time. I finally managed to get her settled under the covers and sat on the edge of the bed, gently brushing a strand of hair from her face. God, she was beautiful. She rolled onto her side, her lips parting slightly as she drifted into a deep sleep. That, at least, hadn't changed a bit. I went back to my room, pulled out a marker, and crossed another day off the calendar. 28 days left. A sharp, deep pain shot through my body. It was starting again. I quickly took my medication, and after about 30 minutes, the agony began to fade, leaving me drenched in a cold sweat. I stepped into the shower to rinse off, and as I was washing my hair, I felt fingertips trail down my back. I quickly rinsed the shampoo from my hair and spun around. Jesus, you scared the hell out of me. Emma was standing right behind me, her hair a mess, her fingers tracing a line down my spine. She was still drunk. Butterfly bones, she slurred. You have them too, just like he did. I told her 100 times they were called shoulder blades, but she always insisted they looked like a butterfly's wings. I guided her out of the bathroom, quickly dried off, threw on some clothes, and carried her back to her bed. She reached for me again, but I gently pushed her hands down and feigned annoyance. Stop moving. Go to sleep. She finally settled down. Once I was sure she was asleep, I went to my own room, locked the door, and was out the second my head hit the pillow. The next morning, a loud knocking jolted me awake. I opened the door to find Emma standing there, furious, shoving her phone in my face. What the hell did you do to me last night while I was drunk? The screen showed security footage of me carrying her out of the bathroom. You were drunk, I explained. You wandered in while I was in the shower. Halfway through the sentence, it hit me. Wait a minute, Emma. Did you install cameras in the apartment? Her eyes flickered away for a second, but she tried to act cool. So what if I did? What if you tried to pull something? She's not wrong to be cautious, I thought. I cleared my throat and said with a dry laugh, honestly, what do you think a guy in my condition could possibly do? She gave me a quick once-over and nodded. Fair point. Just watch yourself next time. Don't try to get handsy. With that, she walked out, calling over her shoulder that she wouldn't be home for dinner. I wanted to stop her, but I didn't have the energy. By midnight, she still wasn't back and wasn't answering her phone. A knot of worry formed in my stomach, so I pulled out my phone and logged into our old shared Find My account. She had insisted on it years ago, saying it was an easy way to keep tabs on each other. The location pinged to a bar in River North. Remembering what a mess she'd been the night before, my heart lurched. I grabbed my jacket and bolted out the door. I did 2 laps inside the crowded bar, but couldn't find her, though the tracker insisted she was there. I waited outside, scanning the crowd, and about 30 minutes later, I saw her stumbling out, being held up by some guy as she tried to pull away. I ran over to get her, but the man wouldn't let her go. We ended up in a brawl right there on the sidewalk. Bruised and bleeding, I finally managed to get Emma away from him and into my car. As she lay passed out with her head in my lap, a terrible feeling washed over me. What would have happened to her if I hadn't come? The pain flared up again, sharp and insistent. I didn't have my meds with me in the car, and before I knew it, I blacked out. When I came to, the morning sun was blinding. Emma was gently touching the cuts on my face. She pulled her hand back when she saw my eyes open. What happened to your face? She asked coolly. And why are we still in the car? A surge of anger went through me. You got wasted 2 nights in a row. I yelled. Have you even thought about what could have happened to you if I hadn't been there? Emma just stared at me for a second, then her expression hardened. Ethan, we're not a real couple. You don't get to tell me what to do. I couldn't hold it back. Then you need to learn how to protect yourself, because I won't be around to look after you for much longer. She flinched, looking at me like I was crazy. Who do you think you are, yelling at me like that? I took a deep breath, trying to calm down. Just shut up and put on your seatbelt. We're going home. Maybe my outburst scared her, because she was quiet for the rest of the drive. As soon as we got inside, Buddy came running over, his tail wagging. I got a treat and gave it to him. Emma came up behind me and poked my shoulder. Ethan, I'm hungry. I felt the tension in my shoulders ease a little, but I didn't answer her. She poked me again. Come on, I'll drink less from now on, okay? I still didn't say anything. Fine, okay, I'll stop drinking altogether. I swear. I sighed and handed her the bag of treats. Here, you take care of Buddy. I'll make us some pasta. When I put the bowl in front of her, she stared at it for a second before digging in like she was starving. As she ate, I told her, I have to be away for a few days. Please, stay out of the bars. Okay, she mumbled into her bowl. She agreed way too easily for me to believe her. But it didn't matter. I still had the tracker on her phone. If she went out, I'd know. I packed a bag and headed for the hospital. It was time for my first round of chemo. I had to do it if I wanted to make it to the festival. The chemo left me completely drained. I was just lying in the hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, when the door opened and Emma walked in. She sat down on the edge of the bed, her voice choked with emotion. Who are you? Tell me the truth. I struggled to sit up and managed a weak smile, reaching out to feel her forehead. Still drunk? I'm Ethan. How did you find me here? She took a deep breath and pulled out her phone. On the screen, 2 location dots, hers and mine, were sitting in the exact same spot. Nobody else knows the password to this account, she said through sobs. It's you, isn't it? Who's he? I asked. Stop pretending, she screamed. I gave a small, dismissive laugh. When I bought this phone secondhand, the old owner's login info was saved in the Notes app. I opened the app and showed her the screen. Good thing I have a habit of saving things, right? She pressed on. Then why would you log into that account? I shrugged. I'd logged out of my own account and couldn't remember the password. The chemo brain, you know? My memory's shot. This one was just there, so I used it. She took the phone from me, tears still streaming down her face. Then how do you explain the food? It's exactly the way he cooked. You even put that specific hot sauce in the pasta. I tried to deflect. Hang on, who is this guy we keep talking about? She sat there and told me all about her relationship with the old me, and I listened, captivated. When she was done, I pulled up the bookmarked cooking tutorials on my phone, including one for pasta with a spicy sauce. What a coincidence, right? This is the channel I learned from. I met her gaze. Now look at my face. Is that his face? She stared at me for a long time. Then her shoulders slumped in defeat. You're right, she whispered, her voice full of disappointment. You're not him. 2 weeks later, I was discharged and went home. There were 10 days left until the festival. She'd changed a lot lately. She really had stopped drinking and had even started trying to cook, though her food was almost inedible. One afternoon, I was watering the plants on the balcony when I heard Emma scream. I turned to see her running toward me, clutching Buddy in her arms. Ethan, we have to go? He just collapsed on the floor, and he's not moving. We raced to the vet, where they immediately took him to the back. Emma was a wreck, sobbing and muttering. He's all I have left of him. Nothing can happen to Buddy. I just held her, rubbing her back. This confirmed it. My decision to stay hidden was the right one. If she was this devastated over a dog, watching me die a second time would completely destroy her. A few minutes later, the vet came out, his face grim, and told us Buddy hadn't made it. Emma staggered, then fell to her knees beside his still body. Buddy, you're leaving me too? He was 9 years old, Emma. I said, my voice feeling useless. It was his time. Don't be so sad. He wouldn't want to see you like this. I was heartbroken too. I'd been the one to bring him home as a tiny puppy. After we made the arrangements for him, Emma grew quiet and withdrawn. All I could do was sit with her in silence. A few nights later, the phone rang, waking me from a deep sleep. It was the Chicago police. Are you Emma Jones's husband? Your wife has been in an accident. She's at Central Hospital. When I got there, she was unconscious in a hospital bed with a bandage on her head. The doctor said it was a car crash and that she was lucky they got to her so quickly. I saw the security footage and the photos of the car. On paper, it was a single vehicle accident, but I knew how Emma drove. There was no way she should have hit a utility pole on that stretch of road, unless she did it on purpose. For the first time in all this, I felt completely powerless. The day she was discharged, I drove her out to the lakefront. We set up a small tent and just sat there all day. She put on a brave face, but that night, as we sat by a small bonfire, I had to ask, why did you do it? The forced smile vanished from her face. After a long silence, she whispered, I miss him. If I were your boyfriend, I'd be clawing my way out of my grave right now, I said softly. I told her a story I made up on the spot. I once knew an old woman whose fiancé died when they were young. She was heartbroken, but someone told her a local legend. If you stand by a great body of water and shout the opposite of what's in your heart, your lost love will hear you and come back in a new form to love you again. She tried it, and years later, she met a wonderful man and lived a long, happy life. Emma's eyes lit up for the first time all day. You really believe that? I gestured toward the dark water of Lake Michigan. Why not give it a try? Just yell the opposite of everything you want to say to him. Okay. She jumped to her feet, ran to the water's edge, and after checking that we were alone, she took a deep breath and screamed at the lake. I don't miss you at all. You don't have to come back as someone else to love me. I hate you. Hearing her words, I answered silently in my own heart. Okay. I'll just pretend she meant every word. It might make it easier for me to leave. She turned back to me, looking around playfully. Well, where is he? I thought you said he would come back as someone else to love me. He's right here, you idiot. I whispered, so quietly she couldn't hear. She saw the moisture in my eyes and leaned in, confused. Are you getting jealous? I gently pushed her away. It's just the smoke from the fire. She grinned, a real, genuine smile. Thank you, Ethan. I know it's just a silly story, but yelling like that really helped. It wasn't a story, I thought, but I kept that to myself. She was happier that night than I'd seen her in months. The cloud of depression finally lifting. She promised she would start living her life again. She eventually fell asleep on my shoulder, murmuring, I always feel so safe with you. So familiar. The next day, my shoulder was killing me, so I went to my room to lie down for a while. She shook me awake around noon, holding a spatula and looking more alive than I'd seen her in ages. "I've been thinking," she said, her eyes bright. "You should teach me how to cook. I'm worried that after you're gone, I'll never be able to taste those flavors again. Your cooking reminds me so much of his." For a moment, I desperately wanted to pull her into my arms, to be selfish just once more. But I clenched my fist under the blanket and simply said, "Okay, I'll teach you." She was a serious student. I used to beg her to cook for me, but she'd always playfully refuse, saying one chef in the house was enough. After tasting the 8th bowl of pasta she made, I finally nodded in approval. For the first time in what felt like forever, I saw a real spark in her eyes again. She threw her arms around me happily. "This is perfect. Now, whenever I miss him, I can make something that tastes like him." I forced a smile. Exactly. That evening, we were out for a walk when she stopped in front of a bridal shop. The old me would have dragged her inside and bought her the most beautiful dress they had. The new me didn't have that right. After a moment, she said, "Can I ask for one more thing?" "Of course. On the day of the festival, will you propose to me?" I thought for a second. "Is that something he promised you?" She nodded slowly. I smiled. "Then I'll do it." "Thank you, Ethan," she said. "I have to ask, why did you agree to all of this? To marry me under these crazy conditions? You're a good-looking guy." I raised an eyebrow. "Hey, before I die, I get to experience marriage and a proposal. Sounds like a pretty full life to me." She made it clear that after the proposal, once midnight passed, we would go our separate ways and get the marriage annulled. She promised she'd never bother me again. Back in my room, I pulled out the engagement ring I'd bought for her all those months ago, just before the accident. Just then, the door swung open and I quickly hid the box. Emma stood in the doorway, hugging a pillow. "Can I sleep in here tonight?" Seeing the surprise on my face, she held up her hands. "I promise I won't touch you." Of course I wanted her to. A part of me was sad that she didn't know it was really me, but I knew this would be our last chance for any kind of closeness before the end. The room was so quiet I could hear both of our hearts beating. "Ethan," she whispered, "can you hold me?" I took a deep breath and opened my arms. She snuggled against my chest, and my heart started hammering. She let out a little laugh. "Your heart is so loud." My face grew hot. "Well, you're getting a sick man all worked up. It's cruel." I drifted off to sleep, and when I woke up, she was gone. After getting ready, I walked out onto the balcony and saw a black sedan parked downstairs. A man was standing beside it, holding a bouquet of flowers, which he was presenting to Emma. I recognized the guy. His family had money, but he was a total scumbag. I'd warned her about him before. The metallic taste of blood filled my throat, and I let out a harsh cough. Emma glanced up at me on the balcony, then turned back and accepted the flowers. How could she be so foolish? I grabbed my jacket, flew down the stairs, and took her by the wrist. "You're coming with me." The guy stepped in my way. "Who the hell are you?" I looked him right in the eye. "I'm her husband." He sneered. "Oh, so you're the dying charity case I've heard about." I ignored him and pulled Emma away. To her credit, she followed without a fight, tossing his flowers into the nearest trash can as we walked. Back inside, she asked me what my problem was. "If you're going to move on, at least find a decent guy. That one is trash." "How would you know?" she asked, tilting my chin up with her finger. "Do you know him?" I brushed her hand away. "Takes one to know one." Emma pouted. "Well, I thought for a second maybe my old boyfriend had come back as him." When I didn't respond, she started teasing me, asking if I was jealous. I ignored her, but the pressure in my throat was too much. I doubled over and coughed, a spray of blood hitting the floor. Emma screamed and grabbed my arm. "Come on, we're going to the hospital." I waved her off, my voice weak. "It's no use. Going there won't change anything." I went to my room and sat down, staring at the calendar. 2 days until the festival. We'd get our divorce, and that would be that. My time was almost up anyway. The next day, I went to see Dr. Alex Peterson, the surgeon who had rebuilt my face. He looked at my frail condition and sighed heavily. "After you're gone, Ethan, I'll look after her. I promise." I looked at his face, which he'd subtly altered over the past few months to have a hint of my old features, and I nodded. "I know you will." After my accident, Alex had been the one to map out the surgeries. He was the best in his field, but this was as close to normal as he could get me. The strange thing was, he'd had a crush on Emma for years. They barely knew each other, but she had shown him a small kindness once when he was at his lowest point, and he'd never forgotten it. He was a good man, so he never made a move while I was in the picture. Only when he thought I was dead did he start quietly looking out for her. He was the one who gave me a new face when mine was gone. After making my final arrangements with Alex, I went to set up the place for the proposal. I was getting weaker by the hour. I knew I'd need the adrenaline shot from my drawer just to get through the next day. I crossed off the last box on the calendar. Tomorrow was the festival. Emma slept in my room again that night. As she slept, I leaned over and gently kissed her forehead. Then The next day around noon, after taking the stimulant that barely seemed to work, I found her. Can we do the proposal a little earlier than planned? I asked. Whenever you want, she said. That afternoon, I took her to the spot I'd prepared. She looked breathtaking, having clearly taken a lot of time to get ready. I could feel what little energy I had fading fast. I grabbed her hand, dropped to one knee, and said, Emma, I know this is supposed to happen at night to be romantic, but I'm afraid I can't wait that long. Will you marry me? Tears streamed down her face as she held out her hand. I slowly slid the ring onto her finger. It felt so right. In a way, I had finally married her. When I stood up, she wrapped her arms around me and held on tight, not saying a word. I stroked her hair. Come on, I whispered. We can still get this annulled today. She looked up at me, hesitating, but we agreed to wait until after the festival. I fought through a wave of intense pain. I might not have time tomorrow. She wiped her eyes. Ethan, can you just tell me the truth for once? The truth about what? I asked. She took a deep breath. Nothing. Never mind. If you don't have time, we won't do it. We can wait until you do. Then she turned and walked away, calling over her shoulder. Call me if you need me. As soon as she was out of sight, I collapsed, clutching my stomach. Alex rushed out from where he'd been waiting and helped me up. Come on, it's time to go. The next time I opened my eyes, 2 days had passed. The nurse told me Alex had been called into surgery. I checked my phone. Nothing from Emma. It stung, but this was exactly what I had wanted. The doctor said I only had a few days left and that I should eat whatever I felt like. I looked down at my emaciated body and scoffed. I couldn't keep anything down. For more days went by, and still no word from Emma. I could feel my time running out. In a moment of hazy desperation, I asked my nurse, a kind woman named Maria, to make a call for me. I gave her a number and told her to put it on speaker, to act like she was a telemarketer who had the wrong number. Anything just to get the person on the other end to talk for a minute. The call connected. It was Emma's voice. Maria stumbled over her words. Hello. I'm calling about a refund for a fan I purchased. I think you have the wrong number, Emma said politely. This isn't a customer service line. Oh, but this was the number listed on the website. I could hear laughter in the background on Emma's end, then her voice again. Okay, well, what's the shipping address? I can try to look it up for you. Maria looked at me, panicking. I motioned for her to just make something up. She rattled off a random Chicago address. Sorry, Emma said. I'm not finding anything with that. I gestured for Maria to hang up. She started to apologize, but Emma cut her off. Wait, hold on. I think I found an address linked to this number. Let me see if this is you. Maria was silent. Then, Emma's voice came through the speaker, perfectly clear. Central Hospital, 3rd floor, room 309. Is that correct? The line went dead. A few minutes later, I heard the click of heels coming down the hallway. Emma was leaning against the doorframe. I motioned for Maria to leave us. She walked slowly to my bed, her arms crossed, and sat down, tilting my chin up to face her. Ethan, you really took this all the way, didn't you? Now, you're going to admit, Emma. I interrupted, the word leaving my lips before I could stop it. My love. She froze. A second later, the dam broke, and she collapsed onto my chest, sobbing. I thought I would die without ever hearing you say that to me again. I stroked her hair. How did you know? She sniffled, pulling back with a hint of her old pride. Because I'm not an idiot. She explained everything. Her suspicion started the day she saw me logged into our old shared account. Then when Buddy died, I mentioned he was 9, an age she'd never told me. I knew her car crash was a suicide attempt. She'd even set up the whole thing with that guy and the flowers just to see how I'd react. But the final proof was the night we slept in the same bed. She'd felt the small, circular scar on my chest, the one from a cigarette burn she'd accidentally given me years ago. And the cooking? She'd watched the online videos. My technique was nothing like the chef's. I was floored. When did you get so smart? She looked at me, her eyes full of love and pain. You only changed your face, Ethan. How could I ever not recognize you? My voice was a raw whisper. Then why didn't you say anything? Because you were denying it, she cried. I was so afraid that if I pushed you, you'd just disappear again. I finally had you back. I couldn't risk it. The tears started fresh. Why didn't you just tell me? I wiped her tears away and held her close. Because I was afraid you wouldn't be able to survive losing me a second time. That night, for the first time in months, I felt completely at peace. She was with me, and she knew. The next morning, a doctor came to remove my foreline. Emma watched the long tube slide out of my arm and burst into tears, running out of the room. I called Alex and asked him to come by that afternoon. It was time to tell her everything. At least this way, he could look after her openly when I was gone. When Alex arrived, Emma stared at his face, which now looked so much like my old one, and turned to me, confused. Ethan, who is this? I explained the whole story. I told her Alex was a good man and that he would be there for her if she needed anything after I was gone. Emma understood what I was doing and her voice went cold. My future happiness is not something for you to arrange. Alex quickly interjected, don't worry, Emma, I won't bother you. We can just be friends. After Alex left, Emma turned to me. You shouldn't have done that. It's not fair to him, and it's not fair to me. I took a nap, and when I woke up, I felt better than I had in months. Emma was ecstatic, calling it a miracle. I knew what it really was, the final surge. The rain stopped, I said, looking out the window. I want to go for a walk. Okay, where do you want to go, my love? Navy Pier, I said. I always promised I'd take you, and we never went. When we got there, Emma pulled me straight toward the giant Ferris wheel. She still believed in the legend that riding it together meant you'd be together forever. I got on with her and rested my head on her shoulder, breathing in the familiar scent of her hair. I felt so tired. Honey, she whispered, when you get better, let's have a baby. We can bring our baby here. It took all my effort to form the words. I'd like that. I spoke softly, my voice barely a whisper. Emma, my love, if you like this Ferris wheel so much, you should buy it. All the paperwork for my estate is finished. It's all yours now. And you don't have to try too hard to remember me. If you ever start to forget my face, just know that the next person who loves you will be me, in a different form. She sniffled, pointing out as our car began its descent. We're almost there. One full circle, and we'll be together forever. I nodded as my vision started to fade, and I let my eyes close. Silly girl. She thought I didn't watch TikTok. Everyone knows the other superstition, that couples who ride a Ferris wheel together are destined to break up. I'm not sure if I managed to say the words out loud. The last thing I heard was her gut-wrenching scream, but I couldn't respond. But we were so close. Just a little bit more to finish the circle. Please don't leave me all alone. Ethan,